Greetings and salutations, fellow denizens of Gotham. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by my boy wonder, the boy.
Hey!
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and before we get into all the bat villainy goodness, there's some links in the description if you want to click them. Hit the thumbs up, smash a bottle of your favorite beverage, and then pleasantly hit that like button. Caress it tenderly. Leave a comment. Subscribe to my Patreon, like Rob. Cool guy that he is. And, I don't know. What the fuck else do people say anymore?
Twitch, social medias, moving on.
Just, yeah. How are you guys doing? Tweet it. Don't tweet at me. Fuck you.
Very
I
good
don't know.
ways.
If you want to
Bring
tweet at me.
in the audience.
I guess you can.
Fuck you, don't tweet at me.
I'll probably respond. I meant to say...
He'll respond, don't tweet at me, fuck you.
I meant to say fuck that. Because that's not what I meant to say. But then I said a different thing that I didn't mean to say.
Don't tweet at me, fuck you. Put that shit on a
Comment.
t-shirt.
Comment below. How are you guys doing today? That's what I meant to say. Here we are. Oh, fuck. We're talking about top fives.
And we're talking about top 5 villains.
And we're talking about top 5 DC villains.
But specifically the Batman ones. Alright.
For the reasons we covered in the last podcast, check it out if you haven't already, because we really go in more depth on, like, why separate Bat family villains from the rest of DC Comics. There's reasons. They're good ones. So check that out if you haven't heard it already.
Because we're not going to repeat them. Moving on.
Swiftly along. I guess I got a lot to say.
Yep.
Because Batman's got a lot of cool villains.
Yeah, he does. Alright. Who starts? You? Me?
You've been starting these.
Okay. My number 5 for top 5 Batman villains is the Riddler. Edward Nygma. Honestly, this one's really simple. Some of these I have big, like, thematic reasons or, like, long stories about how they've... No, he's just a funny riddle man. Like, he's just an asshole who is driven by his own psychological problems to catch himself out in crimes. This boy rats himself out every time he does a crime to prove that he's smarter than the world's greatest detective. And he never learns. And he's got a funny question mark costume. I love him. He's great.
I have a lot of jokes, but none of them, they would take away from that which we just experienced. I had a hard time with my Bat list because a lot of iconic Batman villains I'm not that fond of. Like, do I like Scarecrow? Yeah, he's cool. Do I like Penguin? Sure. I think a lot of these characters are rife with opportunity to not only reinterpret, but also just tell stories about their hang-ups. Or their gimmick, or whatever. Mad Hatter, for example. You can go with so many interpretations of that fuck.
And he can be anything from goofy and inoffensive to really, really fucking dark.
And they're pretty much all of them interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, One Face, not a great look, but
Jesus Christ.
Most of the rest of the ideas, pretty fucking good.
One Face.
So it was hard for me to narrow this list down. But at the same time, like, I don't know. Like, sometimes those icons are just not quite what I want.
A lot of this list, sometimes we say this list is oftentimes not about how much we like you, but about how many versions of you we dislike. And that also, unfortunately, counts for how many versions of you we nothing.
Yeah, it really does. But anyway, so, okay, you guys already went back. You stopped this podcast, you hit the like button, you subscribed, whatever. You went back and you listened and you heard what I said in the Top 5 Bat Family Heroes podcast. We're back. My number 5 is Owlman.
Tell the people why.
it's what if Batman was bad? And it's like, it's not even usually...
Not even like a little bad. Not even like, oh, what if Batman became more ruthless? No, what if Batman was a card-carrying evil man out for evil?
Well, and I love it because there are shades there. It can be, what if Batman was just like dedicated to doing bad things? What if he was crimes?
Yeah. What if he is crime man?
But how often the needle is just past that meridian where Batman usually lives? Like, into the evil section. He's like, I'm Batman, but I'm bad now.
Yeah, Justice Lord's Batman.
Sure, yeah.
No. This time we've taken the needle and we've shoved it a good ways over to the other side into, no, you don't understand. I'm evil, but I'm Batman now.
It's the same calmness and, like, you know, reasonable Batman energy, very stoic. But it's the opposite of Black Manta, basically, but still being evil.
He's a crime Vulcan.
Yeah, a crime Vulcan. Woof. I don't think I can get better than that. Yeah, it's just evil Batman. It's Owlman. I think he's cool, and I
also he's got a good ass look.
Yeah, I've long had a fondness for owls, so that helps. Moving to number 4, my friend.
All right, my number 4 is the Phantasm. Very obscure Batman villain, unless you have watched the most popular Batman cartoon of our time. The thing is, she's not really in comics very much. But Mask of the Phantasm was formative for me as a kid. It's one of the first movies beyond the original live action Batman movies that I remember. And Andrea Beaumont is a fucking hell of a story. Like, that is a very powerful story.
Yeah.
That is totally understandable. By the end of it, you're kind of rooting for Phantasm.
Yeah.
And that's hard, and like, especially me as a kid, to have me as a kid rooting not for Batman. You did a good ass job, and I've watched that movie again as an adult, and yeah, that movie's really good. It's a really good movie. And Andrea Beaumont is a very good, very tragic character. And, like, also, cool fucking costume.
Yeah, what have we been saying the last
A good
podcast?
look will carry you a long way. Dr. Destiny kind of bit her whole shtick in terms of look. But Dr. Destiny is like a billion times lamer. So Phantasm gets the nod.
There you go. Speaking of owls, for my number 4, it is astonishing to me how late in the game, in terms of the canonicity of Batman, you can introduce a concept and it's like,
okay, that makes sense. That fits. It's been here the whole time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
An underground society, Illuminati-like, of conspirators in crime and manipulating things from behind the scenes.
The Illuminati of Gotham City that help explain why it's still a shithole even though Batman's been trying to fix it for so long.
The Court of Owls is, again, a good look. Cool masks.
Completely unrelated to Owlman in terms of both in-universe and out-of-universe.
Sure.
Entirely separate origins, which is very amusing.
No, they have Talon. Talon is they're heavy. Talon is also fucking cool, but not on this list. Talon, Little Alligator, Court of Owls.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, but like, there's not any individual among them that's better than the others. It's just a really good thing to put up against Batman. It is a mystery that is difficult to solve, that has unplumbable depths, and a heavy to throw at Batman, who's basically another Batman.
I think the Court of Owls is a very good way of refining the basic concept that Batman was like originally fighting. He originally started out fighting organized crime. But eventually, he's fucking Batman. He's gonna beat up a bunch of Goomba with Tommy guns. Like, this is a refinement.
Yeah.
You refine that, the organized crime syndicate, the Hydra with many heads that is too hard to take down as one man alone, unless you are the man, the Batman. That is a really good enemy for Batman because it's not something he inherently can just punch. So you get there needs to be someone he can punch, and that's why you have Talon. Mm-hmm. But that's why he is Little Alligator, the Court of Owls, because it forces the people writing the Batman comic to take the perhaps controversial step of actually writing him as a talented and dedicated detective.
Well, the beautiful thing about Talon specifically, I mean, there's versions of the character I like a lot. You know, you can go to one of our gauntlets featuring the Bat family. I believe I used a Talon there. But he's ultimately replaceable. The Court of Owls does not give a fuck about the individual Talon. They'll make another one.
I believe in most continuities, they have a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Just on ice waiting.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, it's just this infinite villain. It's a fresh take on a lot of things that have been done before in Batman, but like this is the heavy hitter that combines all of those qualities.
Yeah. A really great villain. I praise be to Scott Snyder. You did the Lord's work when you came up with this.
To you, my friend.
My number 3 is Mr. Freeze. Modern Mr. Freeze. Not weird Mr. Freeze from before the 90s. He was a very different character.
Yeah.
But he's not too modern Mr. Freeze, because they made him weird again in a way I don't like. But, like, you know that period of time when I was most emotionally available to fiction?
You could say Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze.
No.
All right, fine.
What killed the dinosaurs? No!
The Ice Age! Hey, about your opinion. It's cool.
Ah! So, but Victor Freeze is a tragic character, and like so many of Batman's really top tier villains, you feel for him. You understand where he's coming from. He's, for the same reason Phantasm's on my list, at certain points during the story, you can root for him. Because ultimately, he's not necessarily just a cartoon villain. He's a guy with a lot of trauma who's stuck in a very bad situation who doesn't really give much of a fuck about people he's not invested in. That's an easy person to empathize with for me. And, like, he also is, in Batman's actual rogues gallery, one of the few characters with explicit superpowers. Most of them don't have those. So he provides a great challenging enemy for Batman, along with like Poison Ivy and the other higher tier Batman villains, where he's probably not going to win a fist fight, so he has to think around it. And that's really cool. Not to mention he's usually...
I see what you did there.
Thanks.
It was ice.
All right, we're done. We're done with this. Move on.
No, I don't think we are. No, please continue about how cool Mr. Freeze is.
No, I think I actually was done.
Oh,
but
okay.
It was a good
All right. Yeah.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Bane. And it's weird to think of him as being number 3 because, like, I really fucking like most interpretations of Bane. The ones that I'm not as fond of started with The Dark Knight Rises.
No, I don't think you were fond of the one in the Schwarzenegger movie either.
It was all right.
Okay,
I mean, it had a complicated. Didn't have the complexity of the character that I appreciate.
But it was a big guy in the Mucho Lucha
He's
mask.
a big guy. Yeah, he gets big, and Batman goes, "Oh shit." Can you imagine if that was Batman?
Oh shit.
I like him. I like him because he's the thinking villain. Everybody sees him and goes, big guy, he dumb. No. Big guy, very fucking smart.
Smarter than most Batman villains.
And just goes, Batman is very good at fighting. I'm incredibly good at fighting, but sometimes he kicks my ass. You know what I could do? Insta-steroids.
Mega insta-steroids that make it so I kick his ass. And at least one time, it really worked.
You did a good job. And amusingly, that's not even the reason I like Bane so much. Like, that storyline, despite as formative as it was for me as a Batman viewer.
Honest, I like Bane almost exclusively after that storyline. Like, I like him way better after his involvement in that storyline.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff. And even the guy from the movie, if he didn't sound like Deckard Cain, would have been perfect.
As always, Tom Hardy is an amazing, talented actor, and someone needs to be on set at all times with a rolled-up newspaper, ready to snap him across the face and go, "No, don't do a stupid accent, Tom. Do not do a stupid accent and ruin this character." Because he is always just itching. He is just biting at the bit to do a dumb fucking accent for any character. As dumb as he can make up.
I think the best versions of Bane I've seen would be somewhere between the Young Justice Bane, which is voiced by Danny Trejo, and I mean, yes.
Yeah, but A plus, good casting. That's what you want. That's right on the fucking box art.
Or the Bane from the Injustice games. The voice isn't quite as good, but I feel like the character more incorporates all of the best facets of Bane.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. The one from Young Justice kind of gets short shrift because the show's not really about Batman.
Right, exactly.
And so
he's kind of a disposable villain.
He's kind of treated... He's not treated with the care and gravitas that Bane should be treated with. Bane is your big boy villain. Like, fighting Bane should be a fucking thing that you have to really consider.
The Young Justice show is a show where the villain Sportsmaster is on the same tier as Bane. And I love Sportsmaster, but no.
No. Bane should eat Sportsmaster. Like fucking Lucky Charms. Like, no. That's what I mean. He's a cool character. It's one of the things I don't like about Young Justice is some villains aren't treated as well as they should be. Because unfortunately, we've only got so many fucking episodes.
Yeah.
And we want to have characters everyone knows and likes. Like, some are treated very well. Deathstroke gets a real good treatment. Sportsmaster. What a glow up for fucking Sportsmaster. Why? Anyway. But you were saying?
That was about it, honestly. The only other thing I could mention is that I really love Lucha Libre and Lucha traditions, and I like when they fold that into Bane, and it's not just I guess his mask does kind of look like a luchador, doesn't it?
Huh. I guess that is true. It is fun when they really lean in on the heritage.
Like I like that a lot. But yeah, that's about it. I just think he's like Diet Vandal Savage.
Can I take that excellent segue?
Please do.
Let me talk about my number 2. Ra's al Ghul, a.k.a. Diet Vandal Savage.
I don't know. I think he's kind of like the Dr. Pepper to Vandal Savage's Pepsi or Coke.
Oh, God. All right, so there's a joke from a British panel show I watched, which is the host goes, Pepsi, or I guess they should call Pepsi, is Pepsi okay? Because they never say we have Pepsi. You say, do you have Coke? And they say, is Pepsi okay? And then one of the comedians goes, I always feel like I'm Pepsi to other more well-known comedians' Coke. And it's very funny. Sometimes it feels like Ra's al Ghul is Pepsi to Vandal Savage's Coke. But I don't think that's where the character shines. Yes, he is the immortal Demon's Head, leader of the League of Shadows, and most extreme environmentalist in the DC. That's right. Most extreme environmentalist in the DC. Poison Ivy ain't never tried to genocide nobody. Yet. Ra's al Ghul is doing that every week. Every week he's doing a genocide in the name of the environment. They'd be natural allies. I think they team up sometimes, which is great.
Natural allies. I see what you did there.
No. Go away, Arnie.
I just want to be included.
You can be. That's fine. But you gotta fucking... You gotta learn how to moderate it, okay? Look for the natural ice puns. No? No? Okay.
I don't get it.
Okay. So, I think Ra's al Ghul works best as, 1, the Moriarty to Batman's Sherlock, and 2, most importantly, he's the guy that Batman gets to for all his world-spanning schemes and incredible fucking, like... support network and this whole League of Assassins. Batman gets to punch Ra's al Ghul's problems away.
I feel like there was an episode
and they have cool sword fights where Batman has his shirt off.
Maybe this was a different guy, but I feel like there was an episode of TAS where like Ra's al Ghul unlocked the 5-point palm exploding heart technique and threatened to use it against Batman, and like we see the end of it and Robin's like, how the hell did you get out of there? And Batman's like, that's easy. That's not real. That's totally a fake thing that's not real.
God, I hope it was.
I fucking comment if y'all remember.
But, they have cool sword fights. He's a very high, fantasy Errol Flynn villain for Batman. Not as dour or dark as some things, but he also functions excellently as Satan. He is Satan. he is Batman's Satan. Because he is a relative scale of a very challenging physical opponent to a weedy old man, and it bounces back and forth depending on what would be most dramatically appropriate. And simultaneously, he is temptation because he's never gonna give up trying to recruit Bruce, and Bruce can't get rid of him. You can't keep him in jail. You can't kill him. You can't even kill him even if you Batman you wanted to. You can't. Someone will grab his corpse, toss it into a Lazarus pit. You gotta deal with this asshole again next week. So he's always gonna be there on his shoulder saying, wouldn't it be so much easier? Wouldn't it be so much easier if you just took the power I am trying to offer you? And that's a great function to exist in as a villain. And also, he's got great fashion sense. He's weird cape-wearing Wolverine, and you got to admire that.
I was thinking, what if you combined Baron Mordo with the necromancer guy, Dr. Orpheus?
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe. And then a lot of green.
Yeah, a lot of green. That was the Baron Mordo influence. Anything else to say about Ra's al Ghul?
He is the linchpin around a lot of other stories of Batman's I really like, and the League of Assassins, League of Shadows, name changes between interpretations, which is a cool, a very cool force in the DC universe that shows up in other comics a lot, which is nice. That's it.
Good.
What's your number 2?
My number 2, and I only just realized in making this list that it's number 2 now, is the Joker.
That's fair.
It's for a couple of reasons.
What are those reasons?
Reason number 1, I think it's just how I've grown and changed as a person over the years.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, my only tattoo is of a psychotic clown, and I do love clowns, and the Joker will always be formative in my life. But, I am past the point where I'm like, nah, I get him. That's me, but thinner and more successful. I'm just not like that anymore. So, absent of that, I identify with this fondness, I only just really like the character.
Yeah.
There's that. And also, as we've said, how many versions of you do we not give a shit about? And there's increasingly more versions of the Joker that I'm like, yeah, that's fine, I guess.
That's fair. There are definitely versions out there of the Joker I'm not a fan of either, and there are a lot of versions that it is perfect. I can perfectly understand someone wanting to not have in their life. I'm good.
Yeah. I still haven't seen the standalone Joker movie. It just doesn't interest me. The more time goes on, the more I see of it, the more I'm like, I just don't like this guy.
Yeah, basically.
And he, the one from The Brave and the Bold, I get that they're going for a classic Joker thing, but I don't care. He's not fun. I made this decision before I saw the show, but the Joker from the Harley Quinn series, he's pretty two-dimensional.
He's a supporting character.
Yeah, he's a foil, and it's fine. But all that negativity aside, I still really enjoy the character. I like the agent of chaos. I like somebody who is doing crimes not necessarily for personal gain, just for either A, crime's sake, or B, to fuck with Batman. I like how much you can stretch the character. The one was always barefoot and was giant. I didn't like that one either.
That's the one from The Batman.
Just putting that out there.
Voiced by Keith David.
What a waste of your Keith David.
What an absolute waste of your Keith David. Weird look.
He was like Blanca from Street Fighter.
Otherwise, it looked like Blanca cosplaying the Joker. Otherwise, a pretty normal interpretation of the Joker, except for the fact that he did Flippy Blanca martial arts.
Yeah, it just took me out. It sucked me right out of the...
And as it should. It's weird.
Yeah. But a lot of other interpretations, obviously the famous Heath Ledger one. As much as I'm generally unfond of him as a person, the Jared Leto Joker was fine. Well, at least the first one we got. I don't know about this new one. The Jack Nicholson one, the iconic Mark Hamill Joker, the more sinister versions of the Joker we've gotten in comics.
Some of them go a little far for me.
Oh, sure, and that's Batman comics in general, but I just think he's a very, like I said at the top of this podcast, so many of the characters in the Bat family are so rife for experimentation and are so full of stories to tell. And I feel like the Joker stands out as one of the biggest, brightest, and best examples of that within the Bat canon. He's funny. He's fun to impersonate.
And there are many versions of him to impersonate. And
Sure.
I mean, there's only really one. There's only really ever one I'm gonna do in terms of making a Joker voice, but that's because in my head, that's who reads all the Joker's lines in the comics.
Yeah. That's Cesar Romero.
Of course, mustache and all. Huh. DC has a really long history with actors being unwilling to get rid of their mustaches to play iconic characters that don't have mustaches. That is a weird trend I didn't notice till just now.
Well, who's your honorable mention before we get to the number ones?
Clock King. Specifically the version from Batman the Animated Series, or more technically the new Batman Adventures. The one from the comics is actually is majority a Green Arrow villain, and he sucks dick. Clock King in the animated series / Justice League is great, and a great character, and super fun to watch. His episode of the new Batman Adventures is just beautiful bottle storytelling, complete story, one episode. You don't have to do anything else. And he made such an impression with so little screen time that he's on the honorable mentions list, but there's just not enough of him to go anywhere else.
Speaking of which, somebody who is in neither of our honorable mentions, but I feel needs to be there, is Baby Doll.
Man, Baby Doll in my honorable mentions are on my list because Baby Doll makes me sad.
Good.
That episode honestly makes me sadder than Heart of Ice.
Yeah.
I can't watch that episode like normally. That is not like, yes, you're right. Incredibly well done character, makes me sad. Doesn't go on my favorite things.
Absolutely fair. I do want to mention her though because I feel like I would be wrong to leave her off of all of the lists.
Yeah, I mean,
too powerful.
Yeah, it's just incredibly powerful storytelling.
To my honorable mentions, and I'll go through them brief because there's a bunch, and the reason I like them basically boils down to I like them. That's Merrymaker, Professor Pig, Man-Bat, the Ventriloquist, or should I say Scarface, because who's puppeting him doesn't really matter, and Killer Croc, who was almost number 5, but I generally prefer a sympathetic Killer Croc with a more human side. Like, what if Luke Cage got a really bad deal than just the big giant monster that eats people?
And most interpretations of him are that second thing.
Yeah, so, like, it's not...
And most of the rest of the ones, if they aren't that, are, I ate him with a rock.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of good storytelling people have done and could do with Killer Croc, and they don't for whatever reason, and that's fine. But that's why he didn't make number 5. Let's go to your number 1, my friend.
My number one Batman villain was, and likely shall be, the Joker. You gotta get up pretty early in the morning to unseat Mr. J from this list. There are very few things in my life I have written actual academic research papers about, but the Joker and his relationship to Batman is one of those things. White mentions a lot that he likes foils to Batman. He likes looking at like mirrors of Batman in other circumstances. To me, you're never really going to get a better other side of the coin than the Joker. He is an amazing foil, and I could genuinely go grab an actual research paper I did about the origins of the characters and their like metatextual weight in the story and how they've been interpreted in pop culture, and I could read it and it would take 4 hours, so we're not going to do that. But like, it's such a good character to have. There are lots of versions of the Joker I don't like. This is actually a really good exception to that general rule for these lists for us, because there are lots of versions of the Joker I don't like. It would take me a while to list them all, but as a highlight, Arkham: A Serious House on Serious Earth. I don't like that comic, and the version of the Joker in it is poisonously influential to versions of him that came after him, which bothers me. The version of him from the Batman is otherwise fine, but that's a weird look. And perhaps, God, there's another version that I'm missing. Oh, that's right, the new live-action movie. I've seen enough of it now that no thanks.
It's just cynical.
It's just a very mean, cynical movie. And
the Joker for the Rick and Morty age.
And that's not you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you get the guy from Taxi Driver, and I understand that, and I respect that. But you don't get the Joker. You know how I know you made a Joker movie without Batman in it? That's how I know you don't get it. I actually really like Jared Leto's version. It's fine. It's a very classical interpretation of the Joker.
Yeah.
He's got weird tattoos, but shut up. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's interesting. It's new,
Yeah, let people enjoy things. Fuck you.
It's like when they came out with Marilyn Manson Riddler.
Yeah, it's a very Jared Leto's Joker is a very classic interpretation. He's just a gang leader with a gimmick, who happens to be crazy also. That's just really old school. But anyway, for me, there is no version that is going to ever unseat Mark Hamill's version. As I mentioned earlier, when I read the comics, when I see things with the Joker in them and someone isn't at least doing a Mark Hamill impression, I get weirded out. And when I read things with the Joker in them, I hear them in Mark's voice. The dude is just, if you want the idea of what the Joker's supposed to be, pretty much every episode of anything that Mark Hamill was involved in, video games, movies, fucking the original animated series, if he's voicing the Joker, that's probably a pretty good version. Anyway, who's your number one?
The Joker is really somebody that you don't even have to go into that deeply, because he's just that. You know who the Joker is. Not even if you know DC, you know who the Joker is. Like, he's iconic for you too. But my number one, this has been a long brewing change, I think.
I'm very surprised at this.
I'm very surprised at this, but like I searched my heart of hearts.
I'm more surprised about this than I am the fact that Joker was number 2.
Really, who do you think was going to unseat the Joker?
I wasn't sure, but this person is very surprising.
It's been in a lot of comic reading, in a lot of exploring of ancillary media, but I think my favorite DC villain at this point in time, as of making this list, is probably Harley Quinn.
Controversial.
I would say so too, and much like your thing with the Joker, this is kind of like the exception to the rule on the number of versions I don't like, because there's a lot of versions of the character I don't like. Like, even in comics, when they, I think, actually, let me just, before I even get into any of that complaining shit, this is a character that when they hit it right, it is so fucking good. But it's like one of those mini games in a video game where there's that little meter going back and forth. It's a very
small good zone.
Yeah.
The sweet spot is hard to find, but if you nail it, you knock it right out of the park.
And it's just so fucking good. There's everything about the character that has become interesting, this collage of who she has been since her debut in the animated series, and everything that's come up around her, both culturally and in her storylines and the weird shit she's had to deal with. And I think she makes a good villain. I think she makes a good anti-hero, but I think she makes a better human being who does crimes. And I think that's my favorite part about Harley Quinn, is that she feels like a three-dimensional character. It's not like, it's a more mundane version, I guess, of the things like Mr. Freeze and somebody else you mentioned. Phantasm, yes. Whereas, these characters have depth, and that's why they're good. Harley Quinn has depth. Harley Quinn went through her 20s and made some stupid fucking decisions.
Oh, yes, she did.
Harley Quinn has gotten to a point in her life where she's basically addicted to crimes. And, she might do good for a little while, but I'm going to blow up a Gotham bank. Like, that's happening. yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a journey. The character herself feels like a journey, and despite bad interpretations,
And there are some fucking doozies, ladies and gentlemen.
I just like God. The art alone of the last 5 years of Harley Quinn comics is, but yeah, I like her a whole bunch. I like her attitude. She's got that tank girl energy, and I've always been a huge fan of tank girl.
Big tank girl energy, that's fair. Pretty much all versions of Harley have big tank girl energy.
She's either Arlene Sorkin or she's tank girl or somewhere in between.
Yep.
And that's, I don't know, it's just a fresh take on the chaos-causing Joker without the iconography and weight of, Jesus, 60 years at this point?
Yeah, it's a much fresher take on the character because there's not as much baggage. And because she comes from a much later time period, she's been allowed to, by and large, have much more consistent character growth.
Yes.
She doesn't backslide that often as a character. She doesn't have the problems of being hard reset or, like, largely once she split from the Joker, she split from the Joker.
Yeah.
There are occasional stories about her having having a relapse, but they're few and far between, and usually they're Elseworlds. She's been allowed to have very consistent character growth in a way a lot of comics characters, even very popular heroes, aren't allowed to have. So it's very interesting to see this character evolve in a world that can sometimes feel very static.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Also, I like Bud and Lou or Bruce. The hyenas that she has friends with.
Pet hyenas are just cool things to have.
Hyenas are fucking cool in general, and it's just good. It's just good, like, synergy, I guess. She usually has good looks.
She has a couple bad looks.
The original costume I have not seen interpreted well since the animated series.
The original costume doesn't work in live action.
Not just live action, but also just different interpretations. The more realistic, like, drawings.
They don't work for the same reason live action doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's a great silhouette, but if you put a real person in that outfit, they look ridiculous. For the same reason as you had to shrink Ashoka's fucking head thingies for the live action.
Yeah.
That's not going to look good if you don't... in anything but animation. Animation can do clean lines and simple silhouettes in a way live action just doesn't do well. You need shit to break things up. Otherwise it looks... weird.
I mean, at best, it looks like fetish gear. At best.
Yeah, because, like, there's two options. You could either do, like, Lycra, where it looks like a bad Halloween costume, or you can do leather, which holds up better and keeps the silhouette better. But boy, howdy, does it look like she has a latex fetish.
Or somebody else has a latex clown fetish, and here she comes. It's me!
The other problem I have with the live action versions, I think this is part of the reason they don't work, is everyone goes with really stiff, floppy, like the head thing.
Yeah, the motley.
Everyone makes the motley really stiff, and like so it doesn't move. It's clown motley. It's supposed to jiggle jaggle around.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that in the comics because it's a drawing.
Did it in TAS. It's, you know.
Yes, I don't know why they make them like the one from that comes to my mind whenever I talk about this is like the 3 seconds of her in the original costume that exists in Suicide Squad. The motley is really big and really stiff, and it looks weird.
It's a screen test for Ashoka. I've liked her updated looks.
You notably were not terribly fond of most of the Arkham game looks for her.
That was just me. Oh, God, listener, we talked about this. How I have, like, anti-waifu problems.
He has anti-waifu rays. If something looks too much like someone might want it as a waifu, it hurts his ability to enjoy the thing.
No, I mean, they specifically have to talk about it enough in my presence. Like, for example, I don't like Bayonetta. And that's stupid. And I recognize that, but I don't because of how much people are like, oh man, fucking Bayonetta, fucking pussy, man. Whereas I've been playing Code Vein because I've never heard anybody talk about Code Vein, and I have no problem, even though it is a game featuring primarily vampire gongaloranga honkadongs.
Oh God,
It's a stupid thing that my
We're-
brain does, and I hate it.
we're ending the podcast right here because we're not gonna get any better than Vampire Gongalorunga Honkadonks. Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
It wasn't done.
Fuck it.